I spent months planning a trip to Kyoto for my fiancée, an experience based on traditional Japanese carpentry. She publicly humiliated me, calling it a cheap backpacker adventure. So I went alone and found the love of my life. My name is Leo. I had spent months planning that moment, paying attention to every detail and saving every penny I could. On weekends, I taught traditional carpentry classes and crafted custom furniture, work that was not only my livelihood, but also my passion. For 8 months, I saved the money from every workshop, every commission, and every extra hour in the shop, all to fulfill a dream. A trip to Kyoto during the cherry blossom season. It wasn't an impromptu decision. I spent weeks researching, looking for the perfect accommodation, selecting temples, gardens, and artisanal workshops where I could learn antique Japanese carpentry techniques. I thought Victoria would appreciate it. She worked in public relations for a luxury hotel chain and often spoke enthusiastically about authentic travel and cultural experiences. I was completely wrong. We were at The Elevation, a modern rooftop bar where her colleagues gathered every Thursday night. The city lights twinkled in the distance when I pulled out a carefully prepared folder. The itinerary, reservations, photographs of the places we would visit. "Victoria," I said with a mix of excitement and nervousness, "I have something incredible to show you. Remember you said you wanted a meaningful trip? I've been saving, and I'm taking us to Kyoto during the Cherry Blossom Festival. 10 days of temples, traditional gardens, and unique cultural experiences." Her expression changed immediately. It wasn't joy or surprise. It was something entirely different. Displeasure. "Kyoto? Are you serious, Leo?" she said in a tone that made several of her colleagues turn around. "That's a tourist trap. Crowded temples, the same places everyone posts on Instagram. I thought you had better taste." I felt my stomach clench, but I tried to defend the idea. It's not touristy, really. I looked for authentic experiences. Artisanal workshops, little-known historic districts, even a sack brewery that's been in the same family for 400 years. "A brewery," she repeated mockingly. "How charming. Let me guess. We'd also be staying in an inn with paper walls and shared bathrooms. Very romantic." Her sarcasm cut through me. Still, I tried to stay calm. "Actually, yes. It's a traditional 19th century inn with private gardens and original architecture. I thought you'd appreciate its cultural value." That's when she laughed. Not a kind laugh, but a harsh, almost humiliating roar that drew all eyes. "Cultural value, Leo? If we're going to travel, let it be somewhere worthwhile. The French Riviera, Monaco. Places where successful people vacation, not those cheap backpacker adventures in lost towns." Leo's little woodworking shop has him thinking rustic is romantic. It's not. It's just basic. Real couples don't do those things. Her words hit me like a punch. My shop wasn't a hobby. It was my vocation, my life. I had invested years perfecting my technique to create pieces that would last for generations, and she reduced it to a simple, worthless pastime. "Victoria," I said with a firm voice, "this trip cost over $4,000. I worked extra weekends for months to make it happen." Her eyes widened, but not from surprise or admiration, but disdain. $4,000? That's it? Martin's boyfriend spent $12,000 on their weekend in Monaco. That's what successful men do. They don't save up like students for a spring trip. The table fell silent. 8 people, witnesses to how the woman I had spent 2 years with was publicly destroying me. One of her colleagues, David, looked away uncomfortably as she continued. "You need to change your mindset, Leo. Start thinking like people who succeed. Corporate lawyers, bankers, they don't plan low-budget trips. They organize experiences that reflect their level, their vision, their commitment to excellence." Her words didn't just hurt me. They made me understand something essential. It was no longer about the trip. It was about who she wanted me to be. "I understand," I replied slowly, closing the folder and putting it away. "You're right. We are looking for different things." "Finally," she said with a forced smile. "Maybe now you'll start thinking big, about trips that truly impress people, not those poor mindset trivialities." I raised my hand and asked for the check. I left $10 on the table, counting it calmly. "Where are you going?" she asked when she saw me stand up. "We're not done yet." "Yes," I replied, looking at her one last time, surrounded by colleagues who avoided my gaze. "I think we are." I left the bar knowing that something had definitively ended. But I didn't imagine that rupture would mark the beginning of a much better phase. The next day, I booked the trip to Japan for one person. That morning at 6 a.m., I was in my shop, surrounded by cedar shavings and half-finished pieces. I changed the reservation to a single room, the best one at the inn, and added 3 traditional carpentry workshops I had previously cut to save money. The irony wasn't lost on me. Without having to adjust to Victoria's expensive tastes anymore, I could finally afford the authentic experiences I had always dreamed of. It only took a few hours for my phone to start filling with texts from her. At first they sounded almost conciliatory. "Leo, I was stressed from work last night. Let's talk about the trip calmly." But the kindness didn't last long. Reproaches quickly followed. "You're being incredibly immature. Booking a vacation out of spite is no way to fix things. You're emotionally abandoning me when I need support most." This kind of control is what makes a relationship toxic. I screen captured every message and saved them in a folder I later called The Spiral. The real revelation came through Mary, Victoria's coworker, who had witnessed the humiliation the night before. She called me Tuesday afternoon while I was teaching 6 retirees to build dovetail joints at my shop, Palermo Fine Woodcraft. They appreciated the craftsmanship more than my partner ever did. "Leo, I have to tell you something about Victoria," she said cautiously. "I should have done it a long time ago, but I wasn't sure if what I saw was real." "What are you talking about?" I asked, stepping out of the shop. "She's been meeting with Nicholas Vance from Ferraro and Partners, that corporate acquisitions guy she met at last month's cocktail party. They've had coffee 4 times in 3 weeks and lunch twice. She told him you hold her back professionally." I felt my stomach drop, but I managed to keep my voice firm. "And how do you know that?" "Because he asked me if Victoria was single. He said she told him you were just a transition relationship until she found someone who matched her ambitions and could give her the lifestyle she deserves." The pieces started fitting together. Her sudden interest in expensive restaurants, the obsession with designer clothes that mysteriously appeared in our closet, her increasingly frequent criticisms of my work, my income, and my small-town mindset. "There's more," Mary continued. "I saw your credit card statement on her desk when I went to pick up some files. There were charges at spas, luxury stores, and that expensive beauty salon she started going to. She's using your card to pay for things she clearly can't afford on her salary." I felt the analytical focus activate in me, the same one I always applied when solving complex wood joints. "Mary, could you do me a favor? If Nicholas mentions her again, will you let me know what he says?" "Of course, Leo, I'm really sorry. Last night was already unforgivable, but this is worse." That night, I confronted Victoria with the evidence. I was in the apartment, which suddenly felt only mine, as she prepared for another work dinner. "We need to talk about Nicholas Vance," I said, showing her Mary's contact on my phone. Her face cycled through a series of almost rehearsed gestures: surprise, fear, calculation, and then fake innocence. "Nicholas is a professional contact. We've had a few meetings about industry trends and networking opportunities. Mary is jealous of my progress and is inventing rumors." "Does professional networking include telling him I'm a temporary relationship and that I hold you back?" I asked, not looking away. Her laugh sounded empty. "That's out of context. We were talking about my 5-year goals. I mentioned wanting to grow professionally. That's a normal work conversation. And the $400 in spa treatments and the designer clothes paid with my card. Are those also part of your professional development?" That's when the mask completely dropped. Those are investments in the relationship, Leo. Successful men expect their partners to maintain a certain level of image. If you want me to represent you at industry events, I have to look the part. Represent us. Or represent yourself to Nicholas. "This is exactly what I mean," she retorted, raising her voice. "Your closed mindset and your constant suspicion. Nicholas understands the value of image in business. You act like wanting to improve is a betrayal." I observed her in silence. This woman I thought I knew for 2 years. "Victoria, you told another man that I'm just a temporary stage in your life. That was also misinterpreted. He misunderstood what I said. Mary distorted everything to make me look bad because she's uncomfortable seeing a successful woman. You're choosing to believe gossip instead of trusting me." But there was nothing left to discuss. The manipulation had lost its effect. "I'm going to Japan," I finally told her. "Alone. When I return, we'll see if there's anything left to save here." She crossed her arms. You can't run away from our problems, Leo. Mature couples face them together. You're being emotionally abusive. The irony hit me again. That word, abusive, came precisely from the one who had spent months using my effort, my money, and my patience as if they were hers. No, I said, taking my passport and the itinerary folder I had prepared in such detail. This is me refusing to continue being someone's backup plan. As I headed for the door, I heard her voice behind me, trembling between desperation and fear. Leo, wait, can we fix this? Nicholas means nothing, I swear. I'll cancel all my meetings with him. I'll pay you back every cent. I stopped and turned one last time. Victoria, the problem isn't Nicholas, I replied calmly. The problem is that you are ashamed of who I am and what I do. You want me to become someone completely different. That's not true, she countered, eyes filling with tears. I love you. I shook my head. You don't love me. You love the idea of turning me into someone who fits your ambitions, and that is not love. 3 days later, I took the flight to Kyoto with a single suitcase, my camera, and a feeling of relief so immense it almost hurt. The trip I had planned for months was no longer an attempt to please someone. It was an opportunity to reconnect with myself. Kyoto during the cherry blossom season was everything I had dreamed of. Every corner breathed calm and beauty, but what truly transformed that trip was meeting Sophia. I found her at the Kameji temple, photographing the roof's wooden joints with the same fascination as me. I approached her, intrigued by her concentration. She was crouched next to one of the main pillars, taking detailed notes in a worn leather notebook. The precision is incredible, I commented, pointing to one of the joints that fit perfectly after centuries. They use traditional joinery techniques without a single nail. She looked up. Her brown eyes, curious and intelligent, lit up with a smile. You know about traditional carpentry? I'm Sophia. I'm doing my thesis on sustainable craft practices. Most tourists don't even stop to look at this. Leo, I replied, shaking her hand. I'm a carpenter. I teach traditional woodworking techniques. For me, this is like seeing the masters in action. My research seeks to understand how ancient methods can influence modern sustainability, she explained. I'm interested in how Japanese carpenters achieve strong structures without using metal or chemical adhesives. We spent over 3 hours exploring the temple, talking about joinery, wood grain, and the philosophy behind craftsmanship. Sophia understood something Victoria had never grasped, that creating with your hands was not a hobby or a lesser alternative, but a vocation that honored centuries of human knowledge. As we observed a 400-year-old pagoda, I found myself saying, my ex-girlfriend thinks this kind of work is a waste of time. She says I should go into consulting or finance, something that sounds more important in front of her colleagues. Sophia smiled serenely. Then she confuses the impressive with the meaningful. Civilizations were built through craftsmanship. What we create with our hands endures. What is done only for appearance ends up in the trash. That night, we attended a traditional carpentry workshop together. We learned to cut wood joints using only hand tools. Her enthusiasm was contagious. She asked precise questions, took dedicated notes, and almost immediately grasped the depth of what we were learning. When I told her my ex had called this trip a tourist trap, Sophia let out an incredulous laugh. Then she never understood what you do, she said firmly. This craft demands patience, artistic vision, and respect for materials. If someone can call that nonsense, they don't deserve to accompany you on these kinds of experiences. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Victoria was busy constructing her own version of the story on social media. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating with notifications, Instagram stories where she appeared crying in front of a mirror, or posting phrases like, learning to value myself after a manipulative relationship, or when someone abandons you in the middle of a crisis. She had become the perfect victim in a false narrative. In none of her posts did she mention Nicholas, nor the contempt she had shown for my work, nor how she had tried to change me to fit her world of appearances. But I no longer cared. In Japan, I had found something deeper than validation or wounded pride. I had found an authentic connection, something that neither money nor appearances could buy. The next day with Sophia was one of those that seemed designed to be etched into memory. It dawned with a soft mist filtering through the tall stalks of the bamboo forest. As we walked the paths, The sound of the wind through the leaves seemed like a constant whisper. We didn't just talk to fill the silence. Every conversation had weight. We shared ideas about what truly matters in life, creating instead of consuming, finding beauty in simplicity, and valuing things made with intention, not the empty status symbols so many people pursue without thought. Sophia told me she lived in a small apartment where every piece of furniture had a story. Nothing was factory-made. Each piece had been crafted by the hands of local artisans with materials that seemed to retain some of the soul of the person who had worked them. She described her dining table made with reclaimed wood, her hand-carved chairs, and a lamp constructed from bamboo scraps. "I'd rather have 3 objects that stand the test of time than a house full of disposable things," she said. "Quality over quantity," she said, as the aroma of green tea filled the air. "My friends think I'm crazy for spending so much on handcrafted furniture, but they don't understand that true wealth is surrounding yourself with things that were created with purpose, not haste." Her words resonated with me in a way I hadn't expected. It was as if every phrase of hers fit a thought I had often had but could never express with Victoria. "Exactly," I replied. "What is quickly manufactured to be quickly sold has no soul. What takes time, what is born of patience and craft, lasts longer than any trend." I couldn't help but recall the arguments with Victoria. She always said my custom furniture commissions were a waste of money, that I should think about scale and profitability. For her, value was in the numbers, not the work, and every time she mentioned that, something inside me dimmed a little more. Sophia looked at me with a mix of empathy and firmness. "Then she wanted you to betray your essence," she said. "But love isn't about molding someone until they fit your expectations. It's about supporting what that person loves, even if you don't fully understand it." That phrase struck me. It was so simple and so true that it left me speechless. During our last day together, Sophia invited me to see part of her research. She had spent half a year traveling through rural Japanese villages, interviewing artisans who preserved almost extinct techniques. Her notebook was full of meticulous drawings, descriptions of traditional tools, and diagrams of wood joints that only a few still knew how to make. In every photograph, her respect for the ancient crafts, for the precision and knowledge passed down through generations, was evident. "What you're doing is invaluable," I told her as we looked through the documents. "If no one records these techniques, they will disappear." "That's why I do it," she replied serenely. "In ancient wisdom, there are answers to modern problems: sustainable materials, durable structures, beauty without relying on excessive consumption. But it takes someone willing to look beyond the immediate." Those words stayed with me. In just 3 days, Sophia showed me what I had never known in 2 years with Victoria: the meaning of genuine support. I discovered that a relationship is not built on demands or appearances, but on respect and understanding. I returned from Kyoto with hundreds of photographs, Sophia's contact information, and a clarity I hadn't remembered having in years. I felt different, calmer, clearer about what I wanted for my life. But that calm shattered the moment I crossed the door of my shop. The sound of voices alerted me. There were Victoria and Nicholas Vance, her friend from Ferraro and Partners, examining my tools as if they were evaluating a property they planned to divide. They moved among my workbenches and shelves with familiarity, taking notes in a notebook. The scene stopped me cold. Both were standing next to my antique hand planes, the ones I inherited from my grandfather, pieces that were worth more to me than any contract or vehicle. Victoria pointed to them with the attitude of a person who had never used a tool in her life but spoke with authority. "Leo," she said when she saw me, feigning surprise, "you're back early. We were just analyzing our situation and seeing how to fairly divide our shared assets." Her tone was calculated, almost rehearsed. "Shared assets?" I asked, putting my backpack on the floor without taking my eyes off them. "I founded this shop 3 years before I met you. There is nothing to share." Nicholas approached with the air of a corporate lawyer. "Victoria explained to me that you developed this business during the relationship using joint resources and mutual financial planning. In most cases, that is considered a common asset." I had to laugh. "Joint resources?" I repeated, incredulous. "Victoria, you didn't invest anything here. While I was working until the early hours, you were spending my money on spa treatments and trips." She pursed her lips, switching to the haughty tone she used when she wanted to win an argument. You're not being fair, Leo. Couples support each other. My image, my contacts, my social relationships helped your business. If it weren't for my recommendations, Ferraro and Partners wouldn't have given you exposure. Then name one single client you brought in, just one. Nicholas looked away. Look, Leo, we just want to handle this maturely, he interjected uncomfortably. Victoria told me her version, and maybe there's confusion about the ownership. I walked to the metal filing cabinet next to the wall. The only confusion here, I said, opening the drawer, is why you think you have any right to what I built. I pulled out my documents, rental agreement, business registration, insurance, licenses, all with my name, all with dates prior to our relationship. It's all here. Palermo Fine Woodcraft has legally belonged to me since 2019. You moved in with me in 2021. There is no possible dispute. Nicholas checked the papers, and his confidence crumbled. I see, he mumbled. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding regarding the nature of the partnership that existed. There was no partnership. I cut him off. Victoria, you lived in my house, ate my food, used my card, and now you intend to take my workshop with your lover, whom you've been cheating on me with for months. The silence became heavy. I could hear the hum of the fluorescent light above us. And then Nicholas opened his mouth, making the mistake that would fully expose them. Leo, I understand you're hurt by Victoria and me, but we've been together since February. The words hit me like a hammer. Everything clicked into place. The evasive messages, the work nights she claimed to have, the sudden coldness. Not only had they betrayed me emotionally, but they were now trying to steal the one thing I had built with my own hands. I stood looking at them, trying to process the audacity. And in that moment, as the air in the shop became unbreathable, I knew I would no longer allow anyone, not Victoria, not Nicholas, not anyone else, to trample on my work or who I am. When Victoria told me that there was no more than cohabitation between us, I felt the ground open up. She explained with a rehearsed calm that our relationship had ended months ago, in February. February? I repeated, incredulous. Victoria, in February, we went to your company's Valentine's Day party together. You introduced me as your boyfriend in front of everyone. Her face changed color several times before she took refuge in an expression of defensive anger. Nicholas, I think you misinterpreted what I told you about our history, she retorted, turning to him. Leo is confused about the dates. He was confused, yes, but by Victoria's lies. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos from that February 14th dinner. Does this look like a relationship between mere housemates? Nicholas looked at the images, then looked at her, and his face drained of color as the truth was revealed. Victoria, you told me you had been single since November. That Leo was only helping you with the rent until you found your own place. She tried to regain composure. I can explain. But Nicholas was already backing away, visibly uncomfortable. No, thank you. I think I've heard enough. This is much more complicated than you made it seem, and I don't want to be involved in an ongoing marital drama. Victoria called out to him, but he was already leaving the Palermo Fine Woodcraft shop, likely calculating the professional damage this scandal could cause him if anyone at Ferraro and Partners were to find out. When the door closed, Victoria looked at me with teary eyes, though I saw not sadness, but frustration. Leo, you just ruined everything. Nicholas offered me a real opportunity, stability, growth. Real opportunities? I replied. You mean financial? Trading a craftsman for a corporate executive? There's nothing wrong with seeking security and success, she countered. Nicholas understands professional ambition. He knows how to plan the future. How curious, I said, remembering Sophia, the researcher I had spent 3 days with in Japan. I just met someone who values building durable things instead of constantly seeking an upgraded version of everything. Her expression turned to panic. What are you saying, Leo? Tell me you didn't do anything stupid while you were away. Don't make impulsive decisions over a passing fling. I met someone who appreciates the same things as me. Someone who sees beauty in the craft, not a flaw to hide. Some tourist you found in a bar, she sneered. Be realistic. You're hurt and acting like a child. Her name is Sophia. She's a cultural anthropologist. She's doing her doctorate on traditional crafts. We spent days talking about what truly matters. The color drained from her face. So, you're already with someone else? You met someone and you're going to throw away everything we had. Our relationship ended the night you mocked my work in front of 8 people, calling it basic and without a future. Everything that came after was just cleaning up the remains. That's when she played her last card. Leo, I have to tell you something. I'm pregnant. I observed her in silence, analyzing every gesture. Pregnant? Since when do you know? I took 3 tests this morning. We're having a baby. I went into the bathroom and returned with a receipt I had seen while packing. Curious. Because this says you renewed your birth control prescription at CVS yesterday. The silence became unbearable. I can explain. I picked it up before I knew. I was going to stop taking them. Please, Victoria, stop. You're only sinking yourself deeper. Then she lost control, not out of sadness, but pure rage. You know what? You're right. Nicholas was everything you are not. Successful, ambitious, with contacts. He could give me the life I deserve, but your insecurity ruined everything. My insecurity? I replied calmly. For expecting honesty? For believing that making furniture in a garage is the same as having real success? Nicholas earns 6 figures. He drives a BMW and dines in places that cost more than you earn in a week. I looked around my shop, filled with tools and half-finished pieces that would one day become family heirlooms. You're right. We seek different things. I hope Nicholas reconsiders for your sake. She grabbed her purse and stopped at the door. You'll regret this, Leo. You'll never find anyone better. You'll be left here alone, making tables for people who don't even value what you do. Maybe, I said, remembering Sophia's enthusiasm while documenting Japanese craft techniques, but I'd rather be alone than with someone who sees my passion as a consolation prize. Barely 24 hours after she left, Victoria launched a calculated social media campaign that could have been part of her marketing portfolio. Her Instagram and Facebook accounts were filled with carefully edited posts with a narrative of self-improvement and emotional healing. She used old photos of us with phrases like, "Sometimes you have to escape toxic environments before losing yourself," or "Recognizing manipulation patterns is the first step to healing." She even posted a picture of one of our dinners with the text, "When someone uses money to control your decisions, that is not love, that is financial abuse," omitting that I had paid a $180 bill that night while she mocked my craft. But Victoria underestimated something: consequences. She had forgotten that several people at the elevation bar had recorded the scene where she publicly humiliated me. Within hours, Mark, one of the waiters, posted the video with the caption, "When ego masquerades as success. This woman destroyed her partner for planning a loving trip." The video spread at a speed that even local news rarely achieves. In less than 24 hours, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating with notifications, messages, and tags. My face was everywhere, my voice trying to keep calm while Victoria ridiculed me with a tone of superiority that sounded as rehearsed as it was hurtful. In the recording, every word was clearly audible. Her haughty laugh, her sarcastic comment calling my shop a little artisanal carpentry store, her constant comparison between my work and the careers of the big investors or bankers in her circle. "I don't understand how you can be satisfied with that, Leo," she said in the video. "You can't live your whole life polishing tables as if that were an achievement. It's not even a real vacation." That sentence changed everything. Her contempt, which had so often remained within 4 walls, had now become public. The difference between what she showed on her social media, the perfect couple, movie-like love, inspiring trips, and life, and what she said when she thought no one was listening, was so brutal that no one was indifferent. The impact was immediate. Social media filled with comments from people who knew both of us. Many wrote things I never imagined reading, messages of support, indignation, from people who recognized the value of manual labor, patience, and dedication. Others, who had once personally experienced her arrogance, did not hesitate to expose her, while Victoria tried to portray herself as the victim of a bad edit or a joke taken out of context. The truth had already settled in the public's mind. That was her voice, her tone, her way of looking down on others. My artisan community reacted immediately. And that was what truly touched me. Students from my weekend workshops began posting photos of the pieces they had made with me: tables, shelves, benches, polished wooden frames. They accompanied the images with messages about my teaching style, my patience, and the respect I try to instill for the craft. David Costa, for example, shared the story of how he made the dining table for his daughter's wedding. When I enrolled in Leo's course, I thought I was just going to learn to use tools. But I ended up understanding that wood has life, that every grain tells a story. He taught me that a true artisan does not seek perfection, but harmony between the material and the purpose. He is the most genuine man I know. Seeing them try to destroy his name is painful. Clara Lombardi, whom I had helped restore her kitchen after a flood, also wanted to say something. She uploaded before and after photos showing how the 1940s cabinets had regained their color, shape, and soul. When the insurance company wanted to replace everything with particle board, Leo insisted on saving the original. Thanks to him, my kitchen retains its history. Where others see waste, he sees beauty. That is not just skill, it is sensibility. Even Mark from the Palermo woodshop intervened with a post of his own. He was a supplier I had worked with for years, someone who knew my ethics and my commitment to sustainability. Leo always chooses certified woods. He rejects the easy way out if it means sacrificing quality. He treats every order as if it were for his own home. He doesn't seek to make furniture, but to leave a legacy. What he makes lasts for generations. For days, my networks were filled with stories like these. Each testimony was one more piece in the reconstruction of my reputation that Victoria had tried to destroy with a single phrase. The most unexpected thing happened when Sophia, the woman I met in Japan during a cultural residency, appeared on the scene. She had seen the video through a mutual contact in academia and decided to intervene in a post that had gone viral. I met Leo in Kyoto while studying traditional Japanese wood joinery techniques. His respect for culture, his dedication, and his working method were impressive. Anyone who despises that kind of art does not understand the difference between creating something meaningful and collecting objects only for status. Her comment included photographs of our visits to ancient temples. In them, I was seen kneeling in front of centuries-old structures, analyzing the joints and fitting systems that still supported those temples without a single metal nail. The images conveyed something words could not: devotion, admiration, and a deep respect for the art of working with one's hands. That post attracted the attention of influential people. University professors, researchers, and artisans from different countries began to share the content. Dr. Gabrielle Conti from the Smithsonian wrote a reflection that ended up tipping the scales. The type of carpentry Leo practices represents centuries of knowledge passed down through generations. It is not a hobby, it is a living heritage. Cultures that forget their crafts lose an essential part of their identity. We need more people like him to preserve what connects us to our roots. From that moment on, the story ceased to be a scandal video and became a debate about the value of traditional arts and the dignity of manual labor. What Victoria had tried to present as a humiliation was transformed into a global conversation about respect and authenticity. Her victim narrative collapsed. The company she worked for, a hotel chain that boasted elegance and human treatment, began receiving an avalanche of emails and messages. How can someone who despises those who work with their hands represent a brand based on respect and hospitality? In less than a week, her direct boss, Mr. Grant, summoned her to his office. "Victoria," he said firmly, "the video shows behavior that goes against everything our brand represents. We treat every guest with dignity, and the contempt you exhibited contradicts that principle." She tried to defend herself, claiming the video was taken out of context, that it was a private joke or a misunderstanding, but the damage was irreversible. In the hospitality world, empathy is not an additional skill, but a requirement, and she had publicly demonstrated her absence. Meanwhile, my life took an unexpected turn. The Palermo Fine Woodcraft shop, which until recently received modest commissions, began receiving requests from all over the country. Social media filled with messages from clients who wanted pieces made by the artisan from the video. Within weeks, my orders increased by almost 300%. One of the most memorable messages was from Augustus Rivers, who wrote to commission a dining set. "After seeing how you handled everything with serenity and dignity, I knew I wanted to trust you with this project. There is something about your way of working that conveys authenticity." It was ironic. Victoria's attempt to ridicule me had ended up becoming the best publicity I ever had. Every piece of furniture I built now carried a story behind it, one that spoke of resilience, respect, and love for the craft. But what truly marked me was a phone call. One afternoon, while varnishing a table, my cell phone rang. It was Sophia. "Leo, I just saw everything. I'm sorry you had to go through something like that, but I was thrilled to see how your community defended you," she told me with sincere warmth. "It's been overwhelming," I replied. "I didn't expect such solidarity." "You earned it. What you do has enormous value, and what that woman said was cruel. The world needs more people who create things with meaning, not fewer." Her voice reminded me why I started this. For the love of the process, the respect for the material, the feeling of leaving a piece of myself in every creation. I hung up the phone with a smile, not of pride, but of relief. For the first time in a long time, I felt that people saw what I saw in my work. Something more than wood and tools. The final irony was that, thanks to Victoria's betrayal, I discovered something I had been searching for years without realizing it. Authentic recognition and a connection with someone, Sophia, who truly understood the value of what I do. Sometimes life has its own way of carving justice, and when the tide goes out, solid foundations, like well-worked wood, always remain visible. The public exposure Victoria made of me ended up revealing more than she imagined. Not only did it lay bare her true character, but it also somehow revealed mine. What initially seemed like a humiliation turned into the momentum that united a whole community of people who valued authenticity and craftsmanship over empty appearances. Over the following months, my life took a completely different course. Sophia and I began to build something deep and sincere. Although initially, the distance forced us to do it through video calls, endless emails, and precisely planned visits. She was in the final stage of her doctorate, and I, thanks to the unexpected impact of the viral incident, was forced to expand my shop to meet the large volume of incoming orders. Every 6 weeks, Sophia traveled to spend a few days with me. She brought bundles of notes, folders full of research, and a contagious enthusiasm for everything related to traditional crafts. We spent hours in my shop, her observing and documenting every technique, while I learned about conservation and artisan preservation methods from her academic work. She was fascinated by the way I had adapted the joinery methods of over a century ago to the needs of modern furniture. And I was amazed at how she managed to connect that manual labor with broader cultural movements that promoted sustainability and authenticity. "You're building a bridge between traditional techniques and contemporary demands," she told me one afternoon while I showed her how dovetail joints fit together. This type of integration is exactly what my research shows the world needs: artisans capable of understanding both the historical value and the modern application of their craft. Her way of viewing my work transformed my shop. It ceased to be just a production site and became almost a living research center. We began working together on documentation projects, photographing ancient processes, and interviewing older master artisans who had learned their techniques from previous generations. Sophia had contacts at universities and museums, and thanks to that, we secured support for a documentary on artisan traditions that was later presented at the Smithsonian Folklife Festival. Meanwhile, Victoria's life was crumbling with almost poetic precision. I learned through acquaintances that her job at the hotel chain had ended disastrously. The social media scandal had shredded her reputation within the sector, making it difficult for her to find similar employment. Her BMW, a symbol of status and pride, was repossessed when she couldn't keep up with the payments without my financial support. She ended up taking buses to job interviews that rarely resulted in anything concrete. She finally had to move back to the basement of her mother's apartment, the very place she had been so ashamed of and sought to escape first with me and then with Nicholas Vance. But the saddest part of all was her unhealthy obsession with my progress. I discovered she had created several fake accounts to follow my business page. In every post, she left increasingly unbalanced comments. If I uploaded photos of handmade dining tables, she would write, "Leo used to say artisanal carpentry was a waste of money." If I announced my workshop classes, she would comment, "He barely knew the basics when we were together. This is all just a facade." It was easy to recognize her fake profiles. They all showed the same resentment, the same need to discredit me. I found them annoying, but Sophia found them almost amusing. "She's giving you free advertising," she once said, laughing as we checked the comments. "Every post of hers increases interaction and reinforces the difference between who you were with her and who you are now." She was right. The comparisons were inevitable. While Victoria sank into her own frustration, Sophia and I were building something real, solid, and durable. By spring, Sophia was preparing to defend her doctoral thesis. She had already secured a university position focused on artisan sustainability programs. I, for my part, had hired 3 apprentices at Palermo Fine Woodcraft and had a waiting list of almost 2 years for custom work. It was a time of fulfillment, the result of having championed honesty instead of appearances. However, Victoria's desperation knew no bounds. She began directing her attacks toward Sophia. She found her academic networks and started commenting on her posts with absurd insinuations about our relationship. Leo used to say research wasn't good for making money. He hated women who studied more than they worked. Sophia, far from getting upset, documented everything. She told me she is leaving a public record of her obsession. It's proof of how someone can completely lose their sense of personal boundaries. The situation escalated when Victoria discovered that Sophia's thesis included part of our collaborative work. She began sending emails to the university, accusing her of exploiting my artisanal knowledge without permission or compensation. The accusations were reviewed, but they were quickly dismissed. Sophia had everything perfectly documented: agreements, permissions, and records of collaboration. Dr. Emily Davies, her thesis advisor, even found the case academically interesting. Her intervention proves exactly what you analyze in your research, she told her. She is attempting to appropriate traditional knowledge that belongs to the artisans, the very thing you denounce in your thesis. While all this was happening, my shop achieved a feat I never would have imagined. Palermo Fine Woodcraft was selected to restore the historic carpentry of the urban center, a contract valued at $85,000 annually for 3 years. The project came thanks to my reputation after that viral incident. The members of the city council had seen the videos and wanted to support a local artisan who demonstrated integrity and skill. During the contract signing, Councilwoman Laura Bennett told me, "Your shop represents exactly what we want to highlight in our historic area, the union between tradition, community, and local effort. The way you handled that personal situation showed the kind of person we want as an example for this city." Sophia was with me that day, smiling proudly as I stamped my signature on the documents that secured my professional future. No one understood better than her what that recognition meant, not only in economic terms, but as validation for having followed my own path, without relying on anyone else's approval. "This is what happens when one remains faithful to their values," she told me, raising her glass of champagne in the shop. "You chose authenticity over appearance, and now you are seeing the fruits." And for the first time in a long time, I felt that everything, even the pain of the past, had made sense. Victoria had always wanted me to abandon what made me different. For her, my dedication to wood and my principles about artisanal work were signs of a lack of ambition. But over time, I understood that true love does not seek to mold you. It seeks to accompany you in what defines you. While Victoria saw my values as an anchor that I should drop, Sophia recognized them as a compass that I should preserve. 18 months after meeting in Kyoto, I took Sophia back to the temple where we had first talked about Japanese joinery techniques. I had designed a ring with my own hands, reclaimed walnut from my grandfather's shop, ethical diamonds, and recycled gold. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of what we shared: respect for history and hope for the future. Sophia cried when she saw it. "Leo, this isn't a ring," she said through tears. "It's our story handmade." Our wedding, 6 months later, was the opposite of what Victoria would have planned. Instead of an ostentatious banquet for social media boasting, we transformed my shop into a warm space decorated by friends and colleagues. University professors mingled with my carpentry students, and everyone shared local food served on plates crafted by regional artisans. Dr. Emily Davies, who officiated the ceremony, spoke serenely about the meaning of true relationships. "Couples do not prosper when they try to change each other," she said. "They support each other with respect." Leo and Sophia are an example of this. Their relationship is built on the same values they apply in their craft: patience, dedication, and respect for what has soul. Our honeymoon trip to Japan was not a simple romantic getaway, but a natural continuation of our work. The photographs we shared showed Sophia interviewing master carpenters and me collaborating in century-old workshops. These images circulated in craft and culture magazines, while institutions like the Smithsonian recognized our joint work in documenting techniques that were disappearing. But while our project grew, Victoria demonstrated that she had not overcome the past. As soon as we published our wedding photos, fake accounts began appearing, leaving cruel and strangely detailed messages. "You said travel was a waste, and now you go to Japan twice," wrote one. "She's only using you for her thesis. She'll leave you once she gets her degree," said another. The obsessive tone was undeniable. Dr. Davies immediately warned that this was a case of harassment. She had seen similar situations and explained to us that Victoria's behavior crossed the boundaries of acceptable behavior. She was monitoring us, inventing stories, and seeking to discredit us. My lawyer, Richard Wells, was emphatic. "This isn't personal drama, Leo. It's digital harassment. She is attacking your credibility and affecting your work." With his help, we gathered over 300 pieces of evidence, messages, IP addresses, duplicated posts across multiple accounts. Everything pointed to the same source. We filed a formal complaint, and a restraining order was approved shortly after. The documents clearly showed the level of obsession. Victoria had been monitoring our lives for over a year, gathering data and fabricating false narratives. However, the true closure did not come from the legal system, but from the balance we achieved despite everything. Sophia's thesis defense coincided with the end of that conflict, and the committee, which Dr. Davies was part of, valued her work as an example of ethical collaboration between academia and the artisan world. "Sophia has shown that research can honor tradition," the doctor said. Her project with Leo proves that ancestral knowledge is not just studied, it is lived and preserved. Sophia graduated with honors and secured a permanent university position. Shortly after, Ferraro and Partners recognized my shop, Palermo Fine Woodcraft, as a certified cultural center for teaching traditional crafts, opening doors to new scholarship programs and exhibitions. We were both building something solid without trying to surpass each other, just growing together. 6 months later, we received an unexpected invitation. The International Symposium on Traditional Arts wanted us to present our project as an example of cooperation between academia and craftsmanship. Reviewing the photographs and documents that narrated our journey from Kyoto to that moment, a feeling of calm washed over me. I no longer thought of Victoria with resentment, but with distance. She had been part of a necessary past to understand what I was truly looking for. Her rejection, her contempt, and even her envy were lessons. Thanks to them, I found Sophia, a purpose, and a peace I never would have had with someone who saw my passion as a waste of time. Today, every time I enter my shop and see the engagement ring on the shelf, the one I made with my own hands, I remember what I learned from all this. That the value of a life is not in the applause, but in the authenticity with which you choose to live it. And sometimes justice doesn't come in a courtroom or in revenge, but in the tranquility of knowing that you are moving forward while others are lost in what they left behind.